Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join PSAC members across the Prairie Region. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the federal government's plan to radically change sick leave in the federal public service. We'll also give you an opportunity to ask questions about sick leave and collective bargaining. My name is Jeffrey Vallis, and I'll be your host for tonight. For those of you who haven't participated in a telephone town hall before, this call is a mix between one big conference call and a radio talk show. So feel free to ask questions, which you can do live on the air. If you have a question, just press *3 on your phone to let us know you'd like to ask a question live on this call. Tonight we have PSAC Prairie's Regional Executive Vice President Marianne Hladun and PSAC's National President Robyn Benson on the call. And we also have PSAC Research Officer Bonnie Bates to help answer any questions you may have a little later. For those of you who have just joined the call, we're calling PSAC members across the Prairie Region to discuss sick leave and bargaining. Let's start tonight's call with PSAC National President Robyn Benson. And remember to press *3 to get in the queue to ask a question. Welcome, Robyn. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks, Jeffrey, very much for having me.
Robyn, the main topic for our call tonight is sick leave in the federal public service. However, we're calling about 17,000 members across the prairies, many who aren't employed by Treasury Board. So how does this call affect those members?
Well, Jeffrey, we know that the government is determined to try to take away as many of our negotiated benefits as possible. That's the example that they're going to be setting for other employers. The government's budget bill C4 seriously watered down health and safety protection under the Canada Labour Code. Now, at least 1 million workers in the federal, private, and public sectors are more at risk than ever when they're at work. Government MPs, including the Minister of Labour, have supported Private Members Bill C525, and that's aimed at making it harder for workers to organize. Government ministers regularly make comments putting down the role of unions and unionized workers. This government is continually sending a message that it's okay for employers to go after workers and the salaries and benefits they've negotiated in their collective agreements. So it's important that we stand together when any employer tries to take away our hard-earned benefits, especially when it's one of the largest employers in Canada. With more than 200,000 employees, Treasury Board sets trends for every other employer across this country. We have to stand together for decent working conditions and a good balance between our work and personal lives. Sick leave plays an important role in that work-life balance. So that's why we'll be fighting for it.
I think everyone on this call will certainly agree with that, Robyn. And for those who on the call who have just joined, if you have a question, just press *3 at any time during this call to get in line and ask your questions live. All right, Marianne, I want to get your thoughts on this. We know Treasury Board President Tony Clement hasn't been shy about the fact that he's going after sick leave. But do we know more details about his plans? What exactly are we up against here?
Thanks, Jeffrey. And you're right, he hasn't said very much. And while Treasury Board served us with notice to bargain at the end of February for some groups, negotiations have not yet begun, and we haven't actually received their plan for sick leave. But here's what we know so far. This government wants to get rid of the current sick leave system and introduce a short-term disability plan instead. They want to overhaul the long-term disability plan and integrate it with a short-term disability plan. They want this new system to be in place by July of 2016, and this year they would start the contract process to choose an outside provider for the short-term disability plan and an overhauled long-term disability plan, and they expect to award the contract in 2015. Treasury Board wants all employees to be put on the new system of sick leave, both unionized and excluded employees. And the government also wants to eventually include separate employers in the new short-term and long-term disability plans. Treasury Board is saying that its proposals are based on the belief that work is good for health. So that pretty much gives you a good idea of the employer's approach here.
I think the term they're using is wellness strategy. And many of you on the call probably received an email notice promoting the workplace wellness and productivity strategy for federal government employees. How accurate is that title, Robyn?
Well, Jeffrey, you can put lipstick on a sow, but it's still a sow. And, Mr. Clement may claim that this new strategy is all about employee wellness, but we know what it's really about. It's about, quite frankly, restricting access to leave, reducing the number of sick leave claims and disability claims, and contracting out the administration of sick leave and disability insurance. But most of all, it's about cost cutting. They want to cut costs by reducing the use of sick leave, by reducing the amount of paid leave and salary replacement, and by shortening periods of leave. They also want to cut costs through more aggressive case management. So in other words, getting members back to work faster, whether or not they're better. And we know this because Treasury Board recently issued a tender for a sick leave consultant. It says the winning bidder should have a proven track record of success in reducing sick leave claims. Many of our members have already experienced just how badly insurance companies treat sick workers. We also know the government wants more control over the use of sick leave as a way to manage what it says is high absenteeism. But ironically enough, by contracting out, they'd be turning the control over to an outside company to manage sick leave, disability, and return to work. We know that the current sick leave system isn't perfect. Some employees do not have access to the sick leave they need, but there are ways to address these concerns without reducing everyone's sick leave.
Thanks, Robyn. So we're already getting questions on this, and if you have a question to ask, I want to remind everyone to press *3 at any time during this call to get in line and ask your questions live. Marianne, I'm coming back to you now. One of the things the government has been saying is that federal government employees use too much sick leave. What do you have to say about this?
Well, first of all, I want to point out that Tony Clement's numbers don't add up, and he's never actually come clean on where his numbers are coming from. So he's been saying that the average federal public sector worker takes 18 days of sick leave a year, but our research indicates differently. Our research says that members take between 0 and 8 days of sick leave a year. And we're not alone. In February of this year, the Parliamentary Budget Officer issued a report on sick leave in the federal public sector. That report criticized Treasury Board for including injury on duty leave and disability leave and mixed paid and unpaid leave in order to inflate the numbers. The report concluded that the average number of paid sick days taken was actually 11.5, not the 18 days that Tony Clement claimed.
And what about the difference between public and private sector workers?
Well, it also turns out that the difference between the public and the private sector is only about 1 day, not this huge gap that the government's been claiming. An honest comparison of public and private sector leave points to problems in the private sector. Many private sector workers aren't paid when they're sick, so they aren't counted as being on sick leave. Treasury Board's also talking about rising absenteeism. If managers suspect that some employees are abusing their sick leave, they already have the tools to deal with those individual cases. They approve our members' leave requests in the first place, and they can ask for doctor's notes. Workers shouldn't be going to work when they're sick. It slows down recovery, and frankly, it puts their coworkers at risk.
All right, so we're about to take questions, but first I want to do a quick poll with everyone on the line. So the question is, how much sick leave do you take in an average year? Please listen to all the options before you press a button. Press 1 if you take between 0 and 3 days. Press 2 if you take between 4 to 8 days. Press 3 if you take between 9 to 14 days. Press 4 if you take 15 days or more. Once again, the question is, how much sick leave do you take in an average year? Press 1 for 0 to 3 days, 2 for 4 to 8 days, 3 for 9 to 14 days, and 4 for 15 days or more. All right, thanks for participating in this poll. So, Robyn, we're about to take questions, but I want to hear from you again. So far we've heard what Treasury Board is planning for us, but can you give us a quick update on what the union is planning during this round of bargaining?
Yeah, sure enough, Jeffrey. The Treasury Board bargaining teams, as you know, met early in April to finalize our demands. We're taking a very proactive position, and we're putting forward demands to deal with issues in the workplace, demands that our members have raised and sent in. And of course, quite frankly, we're going to be fighting for the sick leave. As many of you on the call may know, we've just signed a new agreement on the Public Service Health Care Plan. But you also should know that discussions about the plan are done as a partners committee, which is very, very different from actual collective bargaining. However, in spite of that, we were able to make some changes changes, even though the government had been threatening legislation. And so when we're speaking about the government, we're now dealing with their latest implementation legislation, Bill C-31. And this bill, ironically, is called the Economic Action Plan 2014 Act, number 1. So I'm pretty sure that we can expect another one in the fall. What we do know about this bill is that the government has decided not to honor any of the agreements we've made around essential services. According to Bill C-31, we have to negotiate them all over again, and we'll have to do it for each round of negotiations. So this bill reverses all the work that was done as a result of the Public Service Modernization Act that was adopted some 10 years ago. But of course, that's typical of this government. They're all about going backwards.
All right, we're going to take questions in a minute. Remember to press *3 if you wish to ask a question live on air. Marianne, final word goes to you. How do we go about protecting our sick leave?
So the main thing is our current system is negotiated, so that means that Treasury Board can only change it through collective bargaining. Sick leave is one of the reasons the next round of bargaining is so important. It's also why it's so important for every member to be involved in the bargaining process and to stand strong behind all of our bargaining teams. Over the next few months, you'll be notified of membership meetings and other events that relate to bargaining. It's important that we all participate and that everyone encourage your coworkers to do the same. We need to speak to others about the issue, including our family and friends. This current government keeps talking about how we're overpaid and that we abuse sick leave and our other negotiated rights. We know this isn't true, and we need to counter this in every way that we can.
Thanks, Marianne. And thank you, Robyn. We just heard from PSAC Prairie's Regional Executive Vice President, Marianne Hladun, and PSAC National President, Robyn Benson. They will both be with us for the rest of the call, along with PSAC Research Officer, Bonnie Bates, answering your questions about sick leave and concession bargaining. Now, before we get to the questions, one more quick poll for you. Even though our members have sick leave, we know that members still work when they are sick. So, we want to know, have you ever worked while you've been sick? Please listen to all 4 options before you press a button. Press 1 if you've had to come to work sick because you had run out of sick leave. Press 2 if you've come to work sick because of workload pressures. Press 3 if you've come to work sick for both of these reasons. Press 4 if you've never come to work sick. Once again, have you ever worked while you've been sick? 1 for if you've had to come to work because you've run out of sick leave. Press 2 if you've come to work sick because you felt the pressure of work. Press 3 if you've come to work sick for both of these reasons. And press 4 if you've never come to work sick. All right, thank you for participating in that quick poll. Now let's get to our callers' questions. We have Maria from Saskatchewan. So, Maria, what's your question today?
Hi, it's actually Bria. And my question is PSAC legal aware? And if so, what are they doing about the new workplace wellness and reintegration programs that are being rolled out throughout the government departments?
Robyn, did you want to answer that question?
Oh, sure. Oh, I'm sorry, Jeffrey. Of course I can, and thank you very much for the question. Our legal department is looking at it right now. Certainly there was, I think it was Public Works Government Services just sent out something to everyone, and I find that really ironic. You can send out all you want, but the reality is, it's in our collective agreement, we have sick leave. Unequivocally, we're not giving it up. We're standing up for sick leave. We're going to fight for sick leave. So the government can try to, roll out whatever it wants. It certainly won't help it at all. And so we've got challenges in, I think, as many of you know, against C4, the budget bill from last year. We've got court challenges in on C10, which is a budget bill from a couple of years ago that rolled back collective agreement. So we're certainly not afraid to challenge this government in the courts, and we will take them to court if needed.
Now we're going to get to a question, another caller's question, from Trevor. Trevor, what's your question today?
We're going on, I think, now 3 years without a contract. Like, is there anybody else who's in our same boat? And are we better off giving up our fight for seniority and regrouping and focusing on the sick leave at this point? Or what do you think about that?
Trevor, thanks so much for your question. Yes, as an SSO, you have been fighting for a contract for a long time, but the reality is this. as Sister Benson said, the time has come to say no to all concessions, and sick leave and seniority. The reality is, all workers have, you contribute to Canadian society, and the reality is that we don't need to accept concessions. And all of the union memberships, all of the bargaining units, all of the leadership supports all of the bargaining teams in standing up for making sure that there's no concessions on any issue, be it seniority or sick leave.
Okay, moving right along to another question from a member in Alberta. We have a question from Morag about banked sick leave. Morag, are you there?
Yes, I am. I would just like to know that if this new sick leave policy goes through, I've got almost 400 hours of sick leave in my bank. What happens to that sick leave?
We could sit here and we could say if this and if that, but the reality is we're going to fight this government to keep our sick leave. And so, I have 2,000 hours banked in my sick leave bank. I'm not worried about what's going to happen to it because it's going to be in my bank today, tomorrow, and in the future. We have to stand up and fight this government. We have to say no to clawbacks and concessions, and we have to look at the generations to come. So although I certainly understand the angst of our members in terms of what will happen and what if, what I'm saying to our members now and the work that we're doing and talking with our members is not to think about the what ifs, but to think about what we're going to do to save what we have in our collective agreement, to ensure that we have it today, tomorrow, and for always.
Thanks, Robyn. So just to recap on that second poll we did there, the question I asked you was, have you ever worked while you've been sick? 65% of you said you've come to work sick because of workload pressures. And Robyn, I just want to get your thoughts on that quickly before I move on.
Well, I think that, our members are coming to work sick because of workload pressures. It's because they're very conscientious individuals. Contrary to what Mr. Clement may be saying, more specifically with respect to the Treasury Board and agency membership, they really do care about Canadians and the services that they provide. And you have to come to work sick these days because, quite frankly, he's cut so many individuals. It's not backroom the way he's been telling the public. He's cut programs. He's cut jobs. He's prepared to cut another 9,000 jobs. I mean, this government really is not caring about their employees. So it is unfortunate that our membership has to come to work sick, but they do so, I believe, because they are very conscientious and care about the Canadians that they provide services to.
So I want to do another poll with everyone on the line. The Conservative government has cut thousands of jobs affecting crucial public programs and services, and they continue to use a tax on public service workers to divert attention from their scandals and the real impact of their cuts to public services. The next step will be to try to reduce or eliminate long-standing benefits such as sick leave. What would you do to help keep your rights and benefits? Please listen to the options before you press a button. Press 1 if you would talk with your family and friends about what the Conservatives are doing. Press 2 if you would contact your MP by phone, email, or in person. Press 3 if you would talk with your coworkers and ask them to get involved. Press 4 if you would do all of these things. Press 5 if you would not take action. Once again, the 5 options are: press 1 if you would talk with your family and friends. Press 2 if you would contact your MP. Press 3 if you would talk with your coworkers. Press 4 if you do all of these things. And press 5 if you would not take action. I'll give you a moment to make your selection right now. All right, thanks for participating in that poll. Now we're going to go to Shannon Little in Lethbridge. Shannon, what's your question tonight?
Hi, I'm just wondering if we've heard anything about our family-related leave and our personal leave, volunteer leave, and if other people like Canada Post workers, if they have these extra leave days under the plan that they have.
Bonnie, do you want to answer that question?
Sure thing. Thanks, Shannon, for your question. As Robyn and Marianne have both said, we have not received a proposal from Treasury Board on what they're looking to do with sick leave. But as you mentioned, Canada Post does have a short-term disability plan, and it is not a good one. If any of you are hearing that, this is a great plan that Canada Post has, it's not. one of the reasons why it's not is that because they lost their family-related leave. They don't have things like you do in terms of personal and volunteer leave, the same kinds that Treasury Board members have, but they were forced to lose their family-related leave, and their sick leave, their bank sick leave was paid out essentially, but not with very much money, and they were only allowed to keep a small portion to use to offset their short-term disability leave. So, like I say, we don't have a proposal from Treasury Board, but certainly the Canada Post model is not one we ever want to see go any further because it's not a very good one.
Thanks, Bonnie. I think we have a question from Darlene in Winnipeg. Darlene, what's your question for us tonight?
Hi, my question was, with the sick leave that they're quoting, the days that we've taken, that would probably also include time we use for medical appointments?
Okay, thank you. And thanks for the question, because I have been in the press as much as humanly possible talking about Mr. Clement's insane numbers. I think he, woke up one morning and dreamt of 18 days and said that was what we used on average for sick leave. And of course, as I pointed out, you can't possibly use 18 days of sick leave on average when you only earn 15 days. So no, it wasn't really that they were putting medical leave in there. They were mixing apples and oranges. So they were taking long-term disability. They were taking if somebody was off on sick leave for a couple of weeks. I mean, if you take the statistics and you use an average of 10 people and you have them in a team and somebody's away for a year because they have a catastrophic illness, then that average is very high. But you can't mix the apples and oranges. So what I had said continuously is that he needed to look at a pure stream of sick leave. So when the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report came out and the union was vindicated, the press was quick to say, how do you feel? And I said, great, because I know that our members are hard workers. They're proud of the work that they do, and they don't abuse sick leave, and they come in to work and they do the job that needs to be done for Canadians. And Mr. Clement needs to sit up and he needs to start listening to them. He needs to start respecting them.
We have a question now from Barb in Brandon.
My question is, I wonder what the strategy is going to be for the bargaining team going forward in this round to be able to stay united instead of the divide and conquer we've seen in the past. And kind of a part B to that is a strategy for achieving membership support for this really tough and, again, potentially long round of bargaining.
Marianne, you were at the bargaining conference recently in Ottawa. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely, Jeffrey, and thanks, Barb, for your question. At the end of the day, collective agreements are ratified by the membership, and what we're trying to do tonight and going into the future is make sure that members are aware of the process from the very beginning. And I know there's a lot of questions from, I can see that there's a lot of questions about, the Canada Post plan or other plans, but the reality is we don't know what this government is going to put on the table. We have not exchanged demands with them. We don't know what they're going to put in front of us. So really, as Sister Benson said, our stance is no. We're not prepared to make any concessions. We're not prepared to give up our sick leave for something else. We're not prepared to do that. We have given, and we provide valuable support for Canadians, and we are not going to accept any concessions. Members can show their support for the bargaining team by gathering the information, listening to the town hall, talking to their coworkers, sending messages of support to their bargaining team, letting their bargaining team members know what's happening in the workplace and some of the issues that they're facing, and using every opportunity they can to let people know that they support their team, and they support their team to say, no, we're not going into concession bargaining. It's not on the table. We're not discussing it. As Sister Benson told Tony Clement on day one, this is not anything that we're prepared to discuss. It's not on the table. So, the bargaining teams it's a very difficult job, and sometimes it's a thankless job. And, for the members to actually spend the time to listen to the updates, to attend the membership meetings, to go to the website, At the end of the day, an informed membership can help the bargaining team at the table, even if they're not there. They're all standing in support. So thanks so much, Barb, for your question.
Jeffrey, could I just add something further to what Marianne was saying, and certainly for Barb and Brandon. Marianne has stated, and quite rightfully, that the negotiating team members work really hard on behalf of the membership, and it's not an easy job for them. And so I would urge everyone, it's not just about checking the website, it's about signing the pledge cards, the We're All Affected, which, pledges support for collective bargaining. I would urge you to, uptake on political action and do some actions that are very visible to the employer to show that you support the negotiating team. And quite frankly, as time goes on, we'll be asking you to do actions across the country, to visit MPs, to let them know that you're worth more. And so the teams will be staying together. We're ensuring that the schedules are such that no team gets further ahead than any other, because this is about all of us, each and every one of us, working collectively together to ensure that we maintain the benefits that we have, and that we maintain them for not just ourselves, but for future generations. And for workers, not just ourselves in terms of our collective agreement, but if the government thinks that they can just take away from us, that will sort of open the door for every other employer to think that they can do the same. So this is about working people in Canada.
Thanks, Robyn, and that's sort of building on what you said earlier about how this affects not just Treasury Board employees, because Treasury Board is really setting the trends here with what they are trying to pull with federal government employees. Now, just back to what Marianne had mentioned about the Parliamentary Budget Office report that said that the average number of paid sick days taken was 11.5 per year, not the 18 that Tony Clement had claimed. And when we did a poll earlier on the call asking how many days of sick leave you take a year, more than 50% of you said you take 4 to 8 days, and only 2% on the call said 15 days or more. So, certainly our numbers are in line with what we're seeing from the Parliamentary Budget Office and certainly not Tony Clement. But I want to get back to the questions from members now. And a reminder, you can press *3 at any time to get in line to ask your question live on the call. So we're going to go to a question from Val now in Winnipeg. Val, what's your question tonight?
You've already covered part of it with the discussions about the PBO's report, and I'm just wondering about the Stats Canada report that was done too by Sharon Jeet. I'm wondering when our union is going to start really making that known to the media that, the numbers in there are not true and that there truly are, like you said, comparing apples and oranges.
Bonnie, did you want to answer Val's question? Do you have more information about the survey she's talking about?
Thank you, Jeffrey. Statistics Canada also did some research about a year ago on the use of sick leave in the federal public sector, and their numbers were very, very similar to what the Parliamentary Budget Officer reported on. They show the difference between the public and private sector usage rates of about a day, and it's a little more, a little under a day. So it's not the week that Tony Clement is claiming. And again, as Robyn and Marianne have both said, Tony Clement has never come clean on where he gets his numbers from. The New Democratic Party, the NDP, has asked in the House, where do these numbers come from? They've asked the Parliamentary Budget Officer to get to the bottom of it. And both StatsCan and the PBO have said, it's not 18, it's 11.5, it's 10.5. The differences between the public and private sector usage can be explained by things like the fact that the public sector is more highly unionized, there's more women, and we're on average an older workforce than the private sector. I would also add that the private sector doesn't have things like a lot of the paid leave that we have, including paid sick leave often. So either people come to work sick or they stay home without pay. Neither of those two options are great options, and this is one of the many reasons why this is an important issue for us to fight on, because Tony Clement can make up all the numbers he wants, but the fact is sick leave is there for a reason. It's a benefit that we fought for, and it's a public health issue as well. So it's something that, it's great to see some people on the call tonight because it's a really important issue.
Now I want to move on to a question from Donato in Alberta. Donato, what's your question?
Okay, basically what my question is with the anticipation of the government wanting to take away a lot of our sick time, does the union anticipate that they're going to start targeting vacation time as well?
Well, Donato, I hear what you're saying, and that yes, this is what the government is coming at this point in time, is sick leave. I mean, I don't want to be a fearmonger and say that they could come after vacation, they could come after this, and they can come after that. But quite frankly, they can. I mean, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And from my perspective, sick leave is a benefit contained within our collective agreement, as is vacation leave, as is our salaries, as is every other benefit that we have. And so we need to fight to ensure that we keep what's in our collective agreement, and we actually negotiate enhancements. So I don't think that there's the realm of possibility is anything with this particular government. We've seen their disdain for unionized workers and for Canadians as a whole. I mean, they care about the 1%, and that seems to be all they care about. So quite frankly, brothers and sisters, this is the round that we fight back. This is the round that we stand up. And this is the round that we say enough is enough. We're not about to give up with what's contained within any of our collective agreements. And we deserve enhancements.
Thanks, Robyn. Again, anytime you want to ask a question, you can press *3 on your phone to get in line to ask your question. But one of the other great things about the telephone town hall here is that we can ask you for your feedback and get it instantly. And we've been really enjoying seeing what you have to say. One question was about how much sick leave you take. Another question we've asked is how often you have to go to go to work sick because you don't have enough sick leave. I want to ask you another question now. The government is planning to overhaul public service sick leave. Meanwhile, Treasury Board President Tony Clement has been making all sorts of claims about sick leave, abuse, and absenteeism without any facts to back up his claims, as we were talking about earlier. How important is this issue to you? Please listen to all 4 options before you press a button. Press 1 for very important and you want to fight to keep your sick leave benefits. Press 2 for somewhat important to you, but you're open to negotiation on sick leave. Press 3 for not concerned about changes to sick leave. Press 4 if you do not have enough information to make a decision right now. Once again, how important is the issue of sick leave to you? Press 1 for very important to you, and you want to fight to keep your sick leave. Press 2 for somewhat important to you, but open to negotiation on sick leave. Press 3 for not concerned about changes to sick leave. Press 4 if you do not have enough information to make a decision right now. Right now we're going to go to a call from Yvonne. So Yvonne's on the line from Winnipeg. What's your question tonight, Yvonne?
I have a lot of sick leave saved up. I am over the age of 65, so I have no long-term disability coverage because it is not available to me. If Tony Clement goes ahead with his issue, what happens to the over 65 group?
So, at the end of the day, we don't know what they're going to table and what it's going to look like. And Bonnie, do you have any examples of how the long-term plans have worked in other areas?
Well, nothing concrete that I can share right now. I mean, it's a pretty fuzzy area, but it's one that concerns me greatly for people in this caller's case, and for people who have, duty to accommodate issues and other kind of long-term challenges. It's a really worrisome problem. I mean, the government cannot just abdicate their responsibility for the duty to accommodate, but most the sick leave, long-term disability plans, they max out at age 65, and so. Certainly one of the things that, we're really concerned about is, what happens to members who have, are still working and they have long-term health, concerns and duty to accommodate issues. And it's, and unfortunately, I don't have a really clean answer on this, but it's one of the reasons why we want to fight this, proposal that whenever we do receive it, because everything that we've seen in terms of a short-term disability plan and a long-term disability plan that's run by a private company, these are companies that are operating for profit. They're looking to, turn people around back to work as quickly as possible, whether or not you're ready to return to work or not. And they certainly don't have the best interests of the members and their long-term health goals in mind. And I know this may be slightly out there, but one thing to mention too to people, because I know sometimes people think, well, some of these plans aren't so bad. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Well, for example, the Canada Post plan, one of the things that people should know about it is that your doctor may attest that you have an illness that requires you to be off work on sick leave, certified sick leave. That would be under the plan. But the doctor of the private insurance company can override your own doctor and say, no, you don't deserve coverage. You're not that ill. You should be back at work. So this is something to keep in mind when members are asking questions about what's so bad about short-term disability, long-term disability by a private insurance company. It's things like this. It's the ability for a private sector doctor who doesn't even know you, doesn't know your file, doesn't know your medical history, to override your own doctor and to force you back to work. So unfortunately, I can't answer the member's question directly on LTD, but we would like to put a note of caution on the private insurance companies that do offer these plans and what they, can potentially do to members.
Thanks, Bonnie. Now, just a reminder, you can press star 3 at any time to ask your questions on the call, and we have a ton of questions coming in. We're going to try to get to as many of them as we can. But first, I just want to go over those results of the last poll that we did. So I asked you, how important is the issue of sick leave to you? And over 85% said very important, and you want to fight to keep your sick leave benefits. Robyn, I want to ask you for a second. You've been on many of these calls across the country in all the different regions. Based on your experiences there and here tonight, are you surprised by these results?
No, not at all, Jeffrey. The membership has spoken very, very clearly. They've said that enough is enough, that sick leave is very important to them. And I believe it goes further in terms of other concessions that this government may be coming after. So, we're looking at a strategy to ensure that we keep what's in our collective agreements. We're looking at a strategy with respect to this particular government around political action, around having discussions with members of Parliament. I mean, your own member of Parliament should know you by name, should know who you are. What we found in some of the legislation, because these omnibus bills are 400 plus pages, and when you go to see an MP and you start talking about what's in the bill, for example, under C4, with respect to health and safety, they look at you with a blank look because they don't even know what's in a bill that they're obligated to vote on. So, brothers and sisters, this is our time to stand up, and this is when you go and you see your MP and you talk to them about what's in your collective agreement and how you intend to keep it so that it makes a better Canada for everyone.
Thanks, Robyn. So we're going to get back to questions now. I have Joanne from Edmonton on the line. Joanne, what is your question for us tonight?
My question, going back to what happens to our banked sick leave, related to that, Canada Post, what I would like to know if the ladies could share what they know of what happened to the Canada Post employees and their banked sick leave. It would be very informative.
Jeffrey, before we turn it over to Bonnie, because Bonnie will know what happened to the bank sick leave, I think that what we should point out is that Canada Post short-term disability isn't 100% covered. If you have none of the sort of extra days, if you will, you're going to go on leave without pay before you actually go onto the short-term disability. And when you go on the short-term disability, your salary isn't replaced at 100%. So, I mean, it is very problematic with respect to a short-term disability, but Bonnie, what did they do with the bank sick leave?
What happened was that members were paid out for the vast majority of their bank sick leave, and I know there's rumors out there that they got all kinds of money for it. They did not. The dollar value per day was between $2.50 and $7.50 a day, depending on how many days you had in your bank. So it severely devalued the sick leave that they had. They were allowed to keep a small portion of it that could be used to help offset the waiting period for coverage under the short-term disability plan. As Robyn just mentioned, the plan does not kick in right away. You have to wait a week for benefits, and only, of course, if they're approved by the private insurance company. So as I mentioned before, they can override your doctor. And your income replacement is only at 70% if, again, you are approved for income replacement and for coverage under the plan. But no, they did lose they lost the full value of their sick leave because it was paid out at a reduced rate. They only were able to receive a little bit. They cannot accrue any more sick days. So what they have in their small bank is frozen. And, they also, had to see the elimination of their family-related leave as well. So, it certainly left them with a lot less options for being able to take leave to look after themselves and their family.
Thanks, Bonnie. So for those of you who weren't on the call earlier, that's Bonnie Bates. She's PSAC. She's a research officer for PSAC in Ottawa. And we also have on the line PSAC Prairie's Regional Executive Vice President Marianne Hladun and PSAC National President Robyn Benson. And they are answering your questions tonight about sick leave. So we're going to go to right to another question from Ricardo. Ricardo, what's your question tonight?
I wanted to ask if you had any suggestions about what I could do. I have written to my MP twice regarding the issue of our sick leave, asking for support and what's in our collective agreement. I have received one response. It took 4 months to receive it. It did not at all touch on the points that I raised in my letter. I got basically a form letter as a response that didn't say anything. Didn't get a response to my second one. Should I just keep pestering my MP with emails, letters? Should I request an audience with him to speak personally? Any suggestions will be welcome.
Great question, Ricardo. Marianne, do you want to take this one? I know you're no stranger to lobbying MPs, and you've certainly been ignored by a few MPs in your day, as many PSAC members have. So what are your experiences with that?
The reality is that members of Parliament are elected to represent all constituents. So, when you live in a riding and your member of Parliament ignores your issues, that is offensive, and they are required. They vote based on feedback that they get from the constituents. They should be, and they really need to be open to listening to everyone's views. He's elected, or she is elected to represent you. So, I think you came up with your own action plan. Send them an email, but I would say, you want to come in and show him, tell him how many sick days you've taken, show him the collective agreement, and ask him questions about issues that he voted on. And the reality is, as Robyn said, a lot of the MPs do not know what they voted for. And we have had members in the Prairies who, have called me and, let us know how it went with their MP. And they've gone in and they've said, they've shown pieces of C4 to their member of Parliament and said, what does this mean? And they can't answer the question. And that's not right. If that happened to a Canadian public walking into a government office, asking a question and not getting an answer, that wouldn't be acceptable. These folks are elected to represent you, so you have every right to a meeting with your member of Parliament. You have, so if that means you have to send an email every day, absolutely. And, if members need support, need some help, they can always call their nearest regional office. And, we run lobbying courses, throughout the year to kind of assist members with some of that, just to build up their confidence and let them know they can practice how to do that if you need that help. But absolutely, they represent you.
Thanks, Marianne. So jumping over to a question in Edmonton now, we have Patricia McBride on the line. Patricia, what's your question for us tonight?
I was wondering whether or not the unions have all banded together in legal challenges with regard to some of the various bills that the government is passing and what the Treasury Board is trying to do with us. I watched a CPAC program on Meredith versus Attorney General of Canada, and what struck me was the provinces all had their attorney generals there in support of the Attorney General of Canada, and I was wondering whether the union is doing something similar in banding together through lawyers, through various means to fight some of these attacks on our collective agreements.
PSAC is part of the National Joint Council. There are 17 unions that sit at that table. That's the unions that represent all of the individuals at Treasury Board proper and some of the agencies. We have signed a Solidarity Pact. First time ever in the history of the National Joint Council, the unions have come together, and the Solidarity Pact, in a nutshell, speaks to that we won't enter into concession bargaining. So we're quite prepared to work together to ensure that there's no clawbacks within our collective agreements. Notwithstanding the fact the National Joint Council unions have been meeting now every 4 to 6 weeks, which is a big difference from the past where we used to come together 3 times a year only. In the meetings that we're having, we're talking about collective bargaining, we're talking about the budget bills, we're talking about the other bills that the government has tabled, such as 377 with respect to the finances of unions, 525, organizing and decertifying. We have a subcommittee that we struck to look at political action and communications, and we have a subcommittee that we struck to look at exactly what you're asking with respect to legal challenges. So we will be looking and working collectively together on a legal challenge around C4. PSAC has put forward their challenge already, but the other unions are looking at how we're going to work collectively together, what needs to be changed to ensure that we're inclusive. So a great question, and for the first time ever, I have to say that all of the unions are working really well together. As a matter of fact, the PIPS union, Sister Debbie Davio, who is the new president, has put out a memo to her membership to boycott Public Service Week, the same as PSAC has been boycotting Public Service Week for the last 3 years. So we're very pleased at the solidarity that's being shown at that table, and we hope that it's going down into our workplaces as well so that we can work collectively in our work sites with all the unions.
All right, so we're getting a lot of members pressing *3 to get in line to ask their questions. But if you don't get a chance to ask your question tonight, you can always leave a message at the end of the call. When the call does finish, there'll be an opportunity for you to leave a 2-minute message with your questions, comments, and feedback, and we'll do our best to answer all the questions that we haven't on the Prairies website. That's psac.com/prairies. We're going to get to a question, though, from Kevin in Edmonton. Kevin, what's your question tonight?
My understanding is that our political rights are extremely limited to the extent that they exist at all, and there's some discussion about taking political action. I'm wondering, to what extent are we protected? Up to what? Up to how far can we go before we do incur penalties for speaking out?
Well, the government has been trying to reduce political rights. Our members have a right. You have a right to talk to your member of parliament. As a constituent, you absolutely have that right. If certain employers are enforcing things, we will challenge it. We have gone before the board. We have gone on a variety of cases, and we support and will always fight for members to maintain their political rights. This government is, of course, they would like to ensure that public service workers don't have a political voice, but we absolutely have fought for that. And, when it comes down to talking to your member of parliament, they're elected to represent you, and that's absolutely something that, you maintain the right to do.
Moving right along to Medicine Hat, we have Blair on the line. Blair, what's your question tonight?
As a bargaining team member, we had discussions at the bargaining conference. There was discussion regarding sending bargaining team members out into the regions to have town hall grassroots meetings with the members. Is this still going ahead?
Certainly from my perspective, it's happening from coast to coast to coast. I'll let Marianne speak to it, though, because each REVP is planning it just a bit differently. But Marianne, when are yours planned?
Well, actually, thanks, Blair, for the question, and you beat me to it. We had that discussion this afternoon, and just looking at some possible dates. But you're absolutely right. We are looking at scheduling some membership meetings starting probably right at the week of May after the long weekend. And we will make sure that a bargaining team member is at each one of those meetings, because it's important that even if the team member at that meeting is not on your particular table, the reality is that you're able to take the feedback from members as to what you want to take to the employer. Members and bargaining team members, you get to meet each other, you get to see each other's faces. We will be posting the dates. We're confirming dates and locations, and they'll be up on the website on the notbackingdown.com, and we will have all the meeting dates set. But in addition to that, because we know that not everyone's in a major center, we're also looking at doing some webinars to make sure that people outside of the major centers have access to that information as well.
Thanks, Blair. Now I have Temple on the line from Edmonton. Temple, what's your question for us tonight?
Yeah, I got a couple things here. One, you've been talking about taking a stand and all the rest of that, and I'm wondering how far taking a stand goes. I think it would be a good thing to take it as far as, really take it, because there's a major pushback from the government on this, and I think it's just we have to stand up, or it's going to be completely concession bargaining from here on out. And I'm kind of wondering, even with what we've got, with them increasing pension dues and all the rest of it, are we already looking at a bit of a pension or a bit of a cut in our take-home pay?
I know that PSAC is taking a strong position at the Canadian Labour Congress. Maybe, Robyn, you want to talk about the upcoming pension fight to protect public pensions that's been ongoing for some time. This is not new, but it's again an important fight because it speaks to benefits and insurances that we have that looks after not just us but our families and our communities. So, Robyn, do you want to speak a little bit on the pension fight?
Well, I certainly can. We've been part of the, first of all, a number of years ago, I'm sure many of you will recall that we did a hands off our pension fight back. And we presented the late Mr. Flaherty with a petition with hundreds of thousands of signatures of individuals, who signed up to say hands off our pension. And we've been involved with the CLC, the Canadian Labour Congress, and their campaign to increase the Canada Pension Plan. Now, just the other day, the minister announced some changes to pension plans, and they're looking at changes to the pension plans because, of course, they're wanting, in some ways to go defined contribution, et cetera. So I got a call from the president of Treasury Board, Mr. Clement, to say that this was not the superannuation, so please, don't be concerned at this point in time. He said that his position had not changed with respect to pensions, and we have a very healthy pension plan in the superannuation. Don't let any government rhetoric fool you. And so at the same time, because I had the opportunity to speak to him, we talked a bit about going into negotiations, and I explained to him that my position had not changed either going into negotiations, and he knew quite well what I meant, because I've been very vocal that we're not moving into concessions, and certainly that will include our pensions. We work day in and day out, and as I've said to many, last I looked on my paycheck, there was a deduction there for our superannuation, and so we pay our fair share into our pensions, and it's about dignity and respect in retirement. So, certainly the pension fight is there for others, though. We need to ensure that those who don't have an employer pension plan and only have the Canada Pension Plan, that they too can retire with dignity and respect. And so it's about unions working for working people as well.
All right, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this call tonight. Answers to any questions we didn't have a chance to answer on the call will be posted on the Prairies website next week. Be sure to check notbackingdown.com for your information. And that's, again, if you didn't get a chance to ask your question or have feedback for us, you'll have an opportunity to leave your comments in the message at the end of this call. But before we wrap up, I want to hear your thoughts on tonight's call. Robyn?
Thank you very much, Jeffrey, and thank you to all of our members for taking time to be on the call this evening. For me, especially, coming from the Prairies and only having left there 2 years ago, it's wonderful to have an opportunity to take questions from the membership. I felt that there was a lot of good questions. There's a lot of good discussion. I think it's important that you all know what this Conservative government is up to, not just with respect to sick leave, but with respect to, the various other, private members' bills, in quotation marks. I'll just reiterate what I think you should be telling folks is that sick leave is an insurance policy. And, this government can say that it's a liability, but it's just not true. Certainly if you use it if you're sick, and if you are not sick, you don't use it. We need to work together, sisters and brothers, because this government continues to push home various omnibus bills where, essential services are changed, where the right to strike is changed, where, we no longer have the choice between arbitration and conciliation right to strike because the government has said so now. So there's a lot that needs to be undone, and it can only be undone October 2015. And so for us, we need to work collectively together. We need to ensure that we support our negotiating teams, and we need to talk to each other in the workplaces, and we need to talk to our friends and our families and our neighbors and in our communities, and let them know how proud we are of the work that we do and that we're sticking together. It's the union way.
Thanks for joining us, Robyn. And Marianne, I'm going to give you the final word on the call tonight. What are your thoughts on how things went and on the sick leave fight?
I just want to thank everyone for joining us on this call tonight. But before everyone leaves, I just want to let you know and just reiterate what we talked about before. We're in the process of organizing town hall meetings in numerous locations across the region. The purpose of these meetings will be to give you more information about negotiations with Treasury Board, and as Blair mentioned, we'll make sure that a bargaining team member is there. But this is for all members to attend because, as Robyn said, and we've heard from Bonnie as well, what happens to one group automatically goes, filters down to another group. So, we're 170,000, 180,000 members plus, and we need to stand together. And so if the time right now is to all stand together to fight Tony Clement and Treasury Board, we need to do that. And then we turn around and we fight concessions at any table, anywhere that we can. So everything that we put out, we encourage all members to participate in. We'll be posting information about the meetings on the Prairies website as soon as they're confirmed. And then we'll also be looking at doing some webinars for folks outside of the major centers. And again, we'll post that information. So thank you for joining us on the call. Visit our webpage, contact your nearest regional office to get up to date on bargaining. Make sure we have your updated contact information. And I also want to say, if you have ideas or suggestions of any sort, we're absolutely more than willing to hear them. So leave your ideas at the end of the call, or let us know, down the road if you have a suggestion or something your workplace is willing to do. And, we'll absolutely throw it into the mix to see what we can do. So thanks, everyone, and thank you, Jeffrey.
All right, thanks again to all the PSAC members who took part in tonight's meeting and asked questions. Thanks to Marianne, Robyn, and Bonnie for joining us and answering the questions. And be sure to take just one more minute and leave us a personal message or a question after the call ends. Thanks, everyone. Good night.